Glastonbury Festival was all the rage this weekend. It's all everyone's talking about on social media, so let's break down what happened at Glastonbury Festival. Let's watch this clip of Bob Vylan performing at Glasgow.
Free! Alright, but have you heard this one though? Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF! Death to the IDF!
It's a very catchy slogan. Might be more catchy than From the River to the Sea. It's very interesting how Islamist radicalism is being spread to the West, not by actual Islamists, but in this case, radical progressives. The progressive movement is ushering in the framework and the foundations of Islamism in the West, in this bizarre alliance between the Islamists and the radical left. This will most likely end the same way it ended in Iran, in which Marxist students who helped the Ayatollah take power in 1979 were the first to be massacred and executed and arrested.
So look, we're not pacifist punks here over at Bob Vylan Enterprises. We're not pacifist punks. We are the violent punks, because sometimes you've got to get your message across with violence, because that is the only language that some people speak, unfortunately.
So there we have Bob Vylan saying that he himself is not a pacifist. He will later on go to sing death to the IDF repeatedly and lead that chant, lead 200,000 people at Glastonbury in that genocidal chant. He makes another interesting point here. He points out that violence is the only language that some people speak, unfortunately. Now, if he had any self-reflection, he would realize that the people who only understand violence are the Islamists that he is indirectly supporting in Gaza. Bobby Vylan, we know all about your violence. We have seen it on the streets of Europe. We have seen that violence in New York in 2001 with the destruction of the Twin Towers. We saw it with the attack in Nice, when a truck ran over hundreds of people in France and killed them. We saw it with multiple truck rammings on Christmas markets around Germany. We saw it with the brutal murder and execution of Father Hamel in a sleepy French town. We saw it in the Bataclan, when a concert in the middle of Paris was attacked and 100 or so people were gunned down by machine gun fire by Islamists. We saw it with the infamous Charlie Hebdo attack, when the very progressive and very left-leaning editorial board and cartoonists of Charlie Hebdo were massacred by Islamists. We then saw it with the execution and beheading of Samuel Paty, the liberal French teacher who dared to speak about Charlie Hebdo and the limits of free speech to a class. A Chechen decapitated him on a street. We have seen that violence that you speak about all around our streets. We've also seen it, of course, with suicide bombings, the famous 7/7 bombings in London, where multiple coordinated bombers killed hundreds of innocent Londoners around in a vicious Islamist attack. Let's listen to some more of Bobby Vylan's preaching.
This next song, we want to dedicate it to every single band that is using their platform to speak up for the Palestinian people.
To speak up for the Palestinian people would require actually speaking up against Hamas and against the Islamists and the Palestinian elites that have chosen the path of war and destruction and an attempt to eradicate the state of Israel and the Jewish people. We can see that there are enlightened Muslim elites around the Middle East and around North Africa that have chosen peace. We have seen the framework of peace laid out in the Abraham Accords. The UAE, Bahrain, Morocco and Sudan have joined the Abraham Accords, have recognized the state of Israel and have normalized relations. Peace is possible.
And speak against the crimes that Israel, the UK and the US and much of the Western world are complicit in.
Bobby Vylan talks about complicity. He himself is complicit in the crimes of Hamas. People like him are laying the foundations in the West of Islamism and of the ability of Islamists to take over. So one of the great ironies of Glastonbury Festival are these incredible progressive banners. Here's perhaps the most entertaining one. I don't see any borders, do you, with a little image of planet Earth? Well, I can see a border, and this banner is literally put up on a border. Glastonbury Festival is not cheap. It costs about £400, it's about $450, $480 to attend. And to protect the venue, the organisers of Glastonbury Festival have put up a 4.112 metre high fence that is 7.8 kilometres long. That fence cost £1 million, so about $1.3 million. And it has very impressive and very unique high security features, including an attached external roadway to prevent tunnelling. This is doubly amusing because of all the pro-Palestinian stuff taking place at Glastonbury Festival. The organisers have literally arranged for their border to be protected against tunnelling, one of the strategies used by Hamas to attack the state of Israel and to wage their war against the IDF. The Hamas terrorists are operating within a nexus of tunnels. The organisers of Glastonbury understand the threat of tunnels. That's why they've set up a roadway to prevent tunnelling. And this wall that the Glastonbury organisers have built for £1 million also consists of 0 nuts and bolts to stop the fence being tampered with in any way, shape or form. The organisers of Glastonbury clearly understand that protection is important, and that keeping people out, undesirables, people without tickets, is an important aspect of running a business and of running a cohesive community and of running a successful festival. This reminds me of last year at Glastonbury when Banksy organised a viral stunt. Let's watch it together. So here we have a little boat filled with dummies with high-vis, life-vest jackets being paraded around Glastonbury. This is a reference to the small boats that are crossing the channel from France into the UK, filled with asylum seekers, most of them of course being illegal migrants seeking better economic opportunity in the UK. And this little stunt was meant to symbolise the openness of all of these people at Glastonbury Festival to bringing in the entire world to the United Kingdom. Again, this incredible hypocrisy of a closed festival with an incredibly impressive border wall and very high price to price people out of the festival, preaching open borders for the rest of the country. Now here he is singing, "Heard you want your country back, haha, you can't have that." I mean, the irony is almost, you can't make this up. Imagine talking about Palestine, claiming that they need their country back, and then singing to someone else, haha, you want your country back, can't have that. He's singing that to a crowd of predominantly white, middle-class English people. Now, he's referring obviously to the changing demographics of the UK, and there he is preaching to his own audience who is paying his bills, his hatred to everything that these people are. It's actually very sad to watch. I think the fact that there he is swearing away, saying shut the F up to this crowd of people who's just taking it and singing along and cheering along is a very clear representation of the self-loathing, of the oikophobia that we have in the West. The lack of confidence that Westerners, Europeans, Americans, Australians have in themselves, in their own culture, in their own people. This incredible timidness and shyness that here they are joining into this self-loathing that is paving the way to very horrific ideologies. Clearly, Bob Vylan is a representative of a very vicious, insidious and nefarious ideology that he is masking around as a protest song, masking it also in a not particularly original way. I mean, it's all very reminiscent of what Rage Against the Machine did many years ago. And also the great irony of Bob Vylan, of the duo naming themselves, it's a riff on Bob Dylan, who obviously happened to be a Zionist Jewish American. Robert Allen Zimmerman, he was such a Zionist that the bar mitzvah of his son took place at the Western Wall in Jerusalem in the late 70s. He wrote an entire album of support to Israel. The sea of Palestinian flags being flown in the crowd is very ironic. They're talking about identity. They're talking about Palestinian identity. They want to return Palestinians land that they perceive as Palestinian. But then he sings, you can't have your country. So the Palestinians, they argue for some magical reason are worthy and deserving of a country, but the British, they are not deserving of a country. Their country shouldn't be given back to the Anglo-Saxons. No, the British don't deserve a country, but the Palestinians do. The lack of coherent argument here, fundamentally what we're dealing with is an anti-white performer, an anti-British performer who wants to see the ethnic fabric of the United Kingdom fundamentally transformed. The one thing that I enjoyed about this performance is that Bob Vylan finally verbalizes many of the things that were being said behind closed doors. He's presented his contempt, his hatred, his rage against the West and the very things that made the West great, put it up on stage for everyone to see. It is becoming harder and harder to deny that there are people who have an actively anti-Western agenda and often a very clear anti-white agenda. Watching Bob Vylan sing Death, Death to the IDF, this genocidal chant, wrapped up in the cloak of progressivism. We're so progressive, we're supporting Palestine, all the while actually supporting a genocidal agenda against Israel and the Jewish people. This reminds me of very prophetic words spoken by the Emirati Foreign Minister, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who warned in 2017, he warned the West that there would be more radicals coming out of Western Europe than there are from the Muslim world currently.
There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do.
Because we have allowed this radical ideology to fester, this progressive Islamist alliance, this alliance between two fundamentally opposed ideas that have converged together in their hatred of the Western world, in their hatred of all the values that have made the West great, is an incredibly dangerous one. And if we allow it to fester, it will lead to a great tragedy, and we must be wary. We should listen to the words of enlightened men around the Middle East who are working towards peace and who are warning us that the Islamists that we have allowed into our countries are a danger. We must take their words very seriously. Let's hope that these people, like Bob Vylan and his crowd of followers, the people waving the Palestinian flags, chanting progressive slogans that are actually slogans of hate, are actually the minority of the population, and that the West awakens and returns to the values that have made it great. The transcendentals, beauty, truth, and goodness. That we return to the values that made Western civilization so enlightened, so beautiful, and so good. Remember, the West has done incredible things for the world.